applaud like crazy. All right? When we go live.
And to the staff back there, let's give it up to the staff that's here, folks. Central office, school base. Yeah.
Stand by, everybody.
So good morning, everyone. Good morning. So this is an exciting day, our student town hall meeting, our first of two. I'm your superintendent, Darrell Williams.
I'm Omar Rashid, your student member of the board.
And we're happy to be here. I want to just start to say it's been a pleasure to serve in this capacity since July 1. I'm excited to be a part of the BCPS family. And with that, I want to stress the family part, because I just want to share a little bit about who I am, and then we're going to open up to questions from the floor. But family is important. I am a father of three kids who went through school. I got a 25-year-old daughter, a 22-year-old son, and a soon-to-be 18-year-old graduating senior. So my lens has always been in education with 31 years of experience, but also 25 years of raising children. So I can't separate the two. And because of that, I've always been a proponent of the student voice. So just a quick background, mathematics teacher. Who loves mathematics? Who loves school? Okay, we're going to change that before this hour is over. But as a teacher, assistant principal, a principal of one middle school and two high schools. I don't want to just stop there because this is high school. My first high school experience, I had 2,200 students in my building. And we had a community. In spite of the facilities, in spite of the food selection in the cafeteria, we had a community. Those students supported each other, and our staff supported the students, and the community was great. I would consider that a community school. We were very proud about wearing the jersey or wearing the shirts that had the school's name on it. The second school that I led had 2,800 students, the largest school in that district. But the community of how students supported each other was phenomenal. Both schools we were looking at improving the achievement, because in spite of where you come from, what you look like, and your beliefs, our goal was to make sure you were prepared after high school. And in many times, I had to sit down and talk to the students. And they told me exactly what was working and what wasn't working. And that was the best thing that I served as a principal. Now in this capacity, I got to make sure all 175 schools are preparing our students for their future. So you may have heard me say, you know, we got to raise the bar. We got to challenge you. And challenge is a good thing. It's not going to feel right. You probably have that one course you don't like, that one staff member that you kind of roll your eyes at every now and then. But that's the challenge of life. But we also have to close gaps. If you're not being successful in a particular area, if we have a climate concern, we need to address that. Because, ladies and gentlemen, ultimately after you leave here, you're going to work, you're going to a 2-year program, 4-year program, or you're going to the military. That's my goal. But in order to succeed, we need to hear from you. So I've been on this journey since July 1, visiting schools, talking to staff, talking to students. The first day, actually, we were sitting down talking to a group of students. I see some of you in the audience today, but that's been the journey, to actually talk and then to visit schools. I think I'm up to about 70 schools thus far that I've visited to see what's really happening. I can't run this system by being in my office. I got to be out and about. I even made it to a football game and a soccer game. I won't say which because I know we got different teams and schools here. But that's where you really see what we're doing well. But I got to hear the voice. I'm hearing the voice from staff, definitely from my parents, and that's the purpose today, to hear your voice. And so in a couple of weeks, just so you know, I'll be concluding my entry plan. Is this document what I might do for the first 100 days. And then you'll hear me in January and February talk about the budget. And you'll also hear me talk about the strategic plan, the direction that I see we can move as a district and how we collectively will build that strategic plan. So that's what I'm here. That's why we're here. Dr. Williams, the superintendent, but also a father and an educator, and we're here to listen. Anything you want to share?
I want you guys to be as challenging as you can to this man. Just ask him the hardest questions. Yeah.
All right, let's go. Who would like to begin? Uh-oh. Dun, dun, dun. You get to select. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. Now, you have to state who you are and what school, and then your question.
Hello, my name is Caroline Newman, and I attend Milford Mill Academy as a senior. My question for you today is, how will you change the uneven distribution of funds to schools and programs?
Good question. So in order to change the funds, I need to look at how we're allocating and how we are budgeting. And so I'm doing that now. There is a desire to look at our schools differently in how we fund based on needs. So there's a way in which we fund based on enrollment. So if you're 600, you get this number of staff. If you're 1,800, you get this number of staff. But I want to try to drill down further that if there's a greater need, even at that 600 versus that 800, how do we repurpose allocation and make sure our principals have resources to do just that? But that's through the budget process, and I'll be presenting that in January. And then I'm going to need your help. If you feel that's a good idea, I need for you to talk to your parents so they can talk to elected officials to try to get the budget funded based on how I see the direction that we should go. But that's some of what I'm thinking at this point. But I appreciate that question. Next question. Oh my gosh. Okay. Maybe we'll alternate from one side to another.
Hi, my name is Gavin Gaspard, and I attend Franklin High School. How can we implement classes that help with our future, like how to budget and handle finances?
Oh, excellent question. So there's this, we do have junior achievement. We do have a partnership that we're looking at, and we have been doing at the middle school level. We are in conversations about just being career ready and what might that look like, whether it's a class, whether it's a seminar, whether it's a field trip. I think all of that is what I'm trying to develop in our strategic plan. Because to be honest, you do need to know those life skills about how do you manage, how many people are working, got a job, any kind of job. Okay, so I remember when my child got, I guess I'm going to spill a little bit of my business, got her first job and realized taxes were coming out of her check. You know, she did the calculation, ooh, I'm going to bring some money home, and then when it was about 2/3 of what she calculated, we had to talk about, you know, folks got to pay taxes, and then you take some of that, and then you save, you take some of that, and you give to the community in some sorts. But I think that's very important. We can work with parents in terms of helping you all know that, but as a system, we can provide that kind of support. So we're trying to look at how best to do that. Class, seminar, field trips. And with that, not only about budgeting, but looking at the career aspect. As I visited the Inspire and just see all the different companies out there and having our students to ask the question, more of that about, tell me about your career. Tell me, how did you get there? What kind of schooling did you need to get there? And here's a piece, ladies and gentlemen, that I just want to say. There is a school out there for you after high school. There's a school. There's so many schools out there. And there's a lot of support out there for you. And how do you tap into that support, whether scholarships, grants? We're trying to move away from loans, because nobody wants to graduate and then go to a 2-year or 4-year program, and when you finish that, you're $100,000 in debt because you had to get loans to go to school, fellowships, work assistant, apprenticeships, all of that. But yeah, we really need to focus on that career ready, but just life in itself. Actually, that point came up in one of my community conversations from students who wanted to know how we can do more about preparing around financial literacy, budgeting. It sounds like a math class that you want me to add to the curriculum. No? No? Okay. Okay, this side.
Good morning. My
Good
name is
morning.
Mary Trini Galvez. I currently attend Owings Mills High School, and I'm currently a senior. So for our school to be a small school in size, how do you plan? Well, our capacity has exceeded. So how do you plan on helping us, like our overcrowding classrooms and hallways?
So in terms of the facilities, we're working with our county executive to develop a multi-year capital improvement plan. And that's really looking at all of our schools and prioritizing just that. You know, those schools that need to be renovated, modernized, looking at facilities, air conditioning, capacity. Fortunate for us as a system, our enrollment is steadily increasing. So that's a good thing. But it's also a challenging data point because it's ever increasing. And so we're constantly watching and monitoring. And so we have plans to look at ways to support current structures. Sometimes we call it learning cottages or portables, but definitely have to look at it. We have to kind of reset and look at all of our schools and come up with a systemic plan of how we're going to address just the enrollment. But you know, sometimes there's character in some of these older schools. But sometimes we do have to reset and just look at how do we make the facility better. But again, that's funding again. How do we have support for this from our elected officials? And so there's work to be done, not just here, but in several of our schools.
Hi, my name's Allison DeVobis, and I go to Lansdowne High School. And to go off of the question about like the financial classes and stuff, so at my school we have a class or a program, and it's called Academy of Finance. And I'm a senior, and it is the second to last class of the Academy of Finance program, and they're currently getting rid of it. We have learned how to do taxes. I know how to buy a house. I know how to buy a car. I know how to file my own taxes. I know how to do all of the above budget, but they're getting rid of it, and I'm not sure why, and I want to know how we're going to go about that.
So getting rid of the Academy of Finance or the course or both?
The program as a whole.
The program as a whole. Well, I think the desire is to get this kind of course or seminar for all students. So it doesn't have to be in a special program. I don't know all the particulars around the Academy of Finance, particularly here in the county as to what's happening at Lansdowne. But I think, to your point, the more we can try to address that at an earlier age, so you're not waiting to your senior year, and you don't have to be in a special program to learn about taxes, how to purchase a car, purchase a house, all those good things that you really need to know. That's some of the work that we're going to have to do.
Hi, I'm Elise Tinker, and I'm from Delaney High School, and I'm a 10th grader. And my question for you is, in the math curriculum, from middle to high school, there's a big gap in the algebra, from Algebra 1 to Geometry to Algebra 2. And for me, that was a struggle. So are you planning to do anything with the math curriculum?
Since early summer, as a district, the district had an audit on our math curriculum in terms of what could be taught and how, but also the order. There's a lot of discussion around, does it make sense for students to take Algebra 1, then Geometry, then Algebra 2, or Algebra 1, Algebra 2, then Geometry. The questions come up around that, around the PSAT, and having those skill sets to take the PSAT as well as the SAT. So if you notice, how many of you all took the SAT? Okay. PSAT, that should be everybody, right. In terms of the skill set, there's some geometry and concepts that you need to know for the SAT. So the ordering of the courses and the alignment of the College Board assessment, we're looking at. But in terms of the curriculum itself, it's a lot of work that was done prior to my arrival with an audit, with multiple discussions with our school leaders, our teachers. And so with the curriculum folks, we're looking at how best to teach it. But your question is really around the ordering of the courses. Our dilemma is our national assessments and that making sure you have that skill set. So we're still in conversations with that.
I mean, he's a math teacher, so he can know he's doing it. Just saying.
Omar's so funny to me. Okay, next question.
Hi, my name's Andrew Spence. I'm from Hereford High School. I'm a junior. So in a lot of other counties and school systems, they've either already implemented or they're implementing a later start time. Are there any discussions for a proposal for a later start time?
So that topic has come up. The district that I'm coming from was a big work group and study and looking at the start time, and our secondary schools in that district started, I want to say 15 or 20 minutes later. This has come up in my community conversations. In order to, I just can't do that work by myself. We have to look at all facets of addressing or trying to have a later start time. Because as you can imagine, transportation will be impacted, after school activities, food services. It's just something we can't say, let's have it tomorrow. We have to look at all of those aspects when you have a late start of even 15 minutes. And so that's come up. I think we can have more conversations, but I don't see that happening like now. I think that's going to be a lot of conversations. Just by chance, who would love to have a late start time? Who likes the current start time? Ah! So I just threw that in just to see what the response was. I just think the other piece with that, and this is where I have conversations with Omar, is managing your time. Because, again, I have 3 kids, and I know there's one who will go to bed at 9 o'clock regardless. She's going to bed at 9 o'clock. But there's one who will stay up all night until I say you have to go to bed. And so with that in my own household, I had to manage and say, you got to go to bed because you got to get up and you got to be out the door by 7 a.m. or 6:45 to get to school. So, I know as we kind of explore that, ladies and gentlemen, you have to take care of yourselves. You got to get at least 8 hours of sleep. Now, I'm preaching to the choir because I don't get 8 hours of sleep. Just be honest. But then those weekends, sometimes you have to just rest and just chill. Just chill. You know how I chill? I sit in front of the TV and I watch Chicago PD, all those Chicagos, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, what's the other one? There's like 3 of them. Yeah, I just sit there and that's how I chill, you know. So as we kind of explore that, I just want to say make sure you're eating right, make sure you're getting your sleep, and if you can just unplug for a little bit, you need to unplug. It was interesting talking to my student advisory. There's this pressure, unintended, for everyone to just got to do the work, got to do work. I'm looking at my grades. I'm watching my grades on my phone. Did that teacher put in my grade yet? Is my grade going to go up? Is it going to stay the same? But sometimes folks just need to breathe. Breathe. You know, don't work yourself overtime when you're not well to yourself and to others. So as we kind of explore this issue, right now I would say you got to take care of yourselves. You got to know when to unplug, when to rest, when to sleep. I'm just curious, who gets 8 hours of sleep in this room? We have just a few. How about 6? Okay, the hand. Okay. Are we talking about 4 hours of sleep? Wow. How do you all function with 4 hours of sleep? Sugar and coffee. A lot of caffeine. Unbelievable. All right, we're going to have to work on that. We're going to have to work on that, wellness. Then we'll figure out this kind of time. All right, this came over here. Let's go on this side.
Hi, my name is Aja Diasi. I attend Newtown High School. I'm a junior. The question I have is, it feels like school right now is more about maintaining good grades more than actually learning. And I just wanted to know, like, is there any way you could improve the teaching skills or anything?
So unpack a little bit for me about those behaviors that dictate getting good grades versus learning. Can you give me some examples? Without saying names or...
Okay. Personally, my grades, like, I'm not really learning in school, if you want me to be honest. Like, I'm just trying to get good grades. It's not about, oh, I know what I'm talking about. It's just like, I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get the good grades. But it's not actually me genuinely saying, oh, I know what I'm talking about.
So it's the learning.
Confidently, yes.
The learning. And so, thank you for that. I think as a district, I need to stress a little bit more about just that, are students learning? And then how do we know they have learned? Sometimes a grade may not necessarily indicate that you have learned, you know. So we were talking in my advisory group around the grading and reporting policy and some unintended consequences with that. But the quality of teaching is what I also heard, that we're going to be building the capacity of our staff, but we also have to answer that question. Are our students learning? How do we know? And if not, what are we going to do about it? So sometimes the grade, to your point, will not indicate that students have really mastered the content. And I also have to put this plug in as well. There was an article today about the state assessments. We can't always say the state assessment gives the full picture about our students in our schools. It's a test score, it's a survey, but it doesn't speak to the journey of a school, and it doesn't talk about the individual students in your journey. So sometimes I have to remind adults that this test is one data point. One data point. So, true story. So when I was studying to take my driver's license, how many of y'all got your driver's license? Okay. Now be honest. Did you take the test and pass the test the first time? Oh my gosh, high achievers in this room. But not everybody can, particularly when you got to get on the road. You got to get on the road, you know, you got to practice. That's to get your license. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are a careful driver either. You've just been licensed. I've watched some of you all when I'm visiting schools driving in. I'm trying to see if I recognize some of you all in those cars. But it doesn't necessarily dictate what kind of driver you are just because you have your license. This assessment doesn't necessarily mean what kind of student you are. But to your point, the learning is where I'm about. What's going to happen after high school? To your point, you can get all these grades, but after high school, after your experience, if it means nothing, that's something that we have to look at. I want the grades to align with you are learning and you have mastered, but to your point, I got to make sure learning is happening and looking at different ways to evaluate that learning. A grade is one data point. An assessment is another data point. I'm interested in what's your ability to leave and do great things after high school. So we are focusing on the teaching and learning as a district.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to get to you in the front, Lloyd. We're going to get to you. These are good questions, so thank you all. You all got some good questions.
Hi,
I'm sorry to say the next 20 questions are for Omar.
I gotcha. Okay. My name is Michael. I go to Pikesville, and I'm a senior. My question is, there's a very strong lack of diversity in my AP classes compared to my classes in 9th and 10th grade, and I wonder if you have a plan to help increase the diversity in those courses.
So, how many people are taking AP courses? How many people can say, whether you agree or not, how many people can associate it with his comment? Okay. So thank you. Thank you. So that's going to change. That's going to change. I should not be able to go into a classroom and determine what kind of class this is based on the composition of the students. That's not only for AP, that's for advanced, that's for special ed, that's for ESOL. So I am a proponent of access and opportunity. This question about learning also says I can't have barriers, so you can't access these courses that you want to take. Now sometimes with the advanced level and AP, they may be singletons. So you made, and I know you're in here, you're taking 4 AP classes, you're taking band, you're taking some high-level world language class, you're doing the internships. We call that kind of singleton. So schools may struggle to get all of that into your schedule because they're single classes, one section of this, one section of that. Right? But to your point, that has to change. That has to change. I should not be able to walk, our principals should not be walking into classes where there's not diversity. But also, sometimes you have to recognize you can't determine diversities just by the look. You know, we have a very diverse school district, not only where people are from, their culture, but also their makeup. I think that is a beautiful thing. But to your point, we have to give more students access and opportunity to take those AP classes. You know, there's studies out there. If you take an AP class, you know, your chances of being successful, even if you don't get that 3, 4, and 5, your chance of being successful in college is pretty high. So, math teacher, math major. You know what AP class I took in high school? U.S. history. Why? Because I was crazy. I was following my friends. I wanted to take an AP class, and the first offering was AP U.S. history. That almost killed me with all the reading and studying and writing. Anybody take AP U.S. history? Gosh. AP calculus? Yeah. But my whole point is that was a good experience, even though I didn't major in history or political science, anything related to that. That was just a good experience to have that AP class. I actually took AP Spanish as well. Notice I didn't take anything AP math, but I was a math, hence I was a math major, very good math major too. But I didn't take any of that. So I challenged myself, but to your point, that has to stop. we have to have you all of our students having access, and we can't have the barriers or gatekeepers or a process a long drawn out process for you to even try to get into our AP classes. So I'm working with our community superintendents, and we're looking at our master schedules. We're looking at what's being offered. We're asking some questions, and we're developing that this year. And they've been doing that previous years, but I'm trying to get to just that point, that we want to see diversity. And when I was the principal of this school with 2,800 students, we had a special program, math and science. And as I was visiting classes and looking at who was coming in, I was looking to see if we were bringing in students who were challenging the status quo, particularly females, because at that time it was male dominated area, and I wanted to try to increase the number of females. So sometimes it's not just the race, it's the gender as well, to make sure we have that balance. So thank you for that.
Hello, my name is Marcellus McQueen. I go to Randallstown. I'm a sophomore. My question is for you, Omar. How do you plan to advocate this anti-bullying thing for students around Baltimore County?
So for the anti-bullying, we have a task force, anti-bullying task force with other board members, but more of on the student level with Baltimore County Student Councils. One, we plan on having a forum to talk about mental health and the bullying around it. Cyberbullying is a big thing, and we're trying to figure out what we can do as a system or as students to decrease the amount of bullying going on online, because we realize that a lot of the bullying happening starts online. So if we can get rid of that portion, then maybe we can do something about it in school and around that.
I just want to comment on that. Again, this is the father in me, where cell phones, I know everybody sitting in here has a cell phone, correct? Yep. Yeah. And so I want to just echo that a lot of it starts online, and that's the conversation I had to have with all three of my kids, that at some point we have to shut the phone down and just can't read any more of the tweets, what are they called, Snapchat, whatever those other things, Facebook, I know that's old, I'm aging myself, right? Right. But all of that stuff, because unfortunately it's beginning there, and folks are commenting to your homepage or whatever that don't even know you, or they know you and it's mean, belittling comments, and so social media is a problem. It's a good thing, you have access to information, but it can also turn out to be not a good thing, particularly with this bullying and the comments and the posts, the videos, all of that. It's troubling. It's troubling. You know, again, I'm old, so we didn't have that when I was in high school. You know, we had something called a pay phone. You know, and you know, you had to wait in line if you wanted to use the pay phone, and you had to have 25 cents. I know you all don't know that. Talk to your parents. They can relate to that. But yeah, I just want to echo that has been an issue.
And in October, we had Kindness Matters Month, which one of the main things we had that for was to tackle the issue of bullying. And we had a hashtag BCPS Be Kind. And the point of that was to change the norm of what we say on social media, and to make it uncool to come out and say something unkind in the comments or not like a picture. So I guess if we change the norm around what we do online, then it'll be very odd for someone to say something mean or start bullying someone online. So I guess we can change that as students.
Okay.
Good morning, Dr. Adam Williams. My name is Michael, and I go to Lansdowne. As a freshman at Lansdowne High, I've seen the conditions of the school and the condition it's in. My question is, when will the new school be occurring, and how will it accommodate the amount of zone, magnet, and ESOL students and the aspects of it being in such low-income community.
So, you said you're a freshman? I appreciate that. So Lansdowne is right now being a part of the study to renovate or to modernize. So we're looking at the planning stage. And as you recall, just this Monday, we had elected officials, the Madam House Speaker Adrian Jones, my county executive, other officials were there, county council, touring the building. So it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We just have to plan it, stage it, build it. Probably you might not be there, I don't know, but you can always come back. But it needs to happen. It needs to happen. But you also talked about some programming as well. So my team and I, we have been looking at ESOL, programming, special ed, once again, to get to the needs and what might that look like as we move forward. So definitely, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I like that deep voice. Don't you like that deep voice? You say Barry White? How do you know about Barry White? That's my generation. Love it. I love it. But thank you for that. Thank you. It's going to happen.
Good morning. My name is Karina Hamishak, and I'm from Owings Mills High School. And going back of, I think, Lansdowne, they mentioned ESOL program. So what do you believe are the pros and cons of an ESOL program? And being part of the program myself in the past, I was just wondering what would be the potential reasons that I heard it would be like put out or like shut down because of the ESOL center being overcrowded.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that. So there's different models. Right now we have the ESOL Center, this is one location where our ESOL students can get concentrated support around the acquisition of English language. The con of that is this is a center and students are coming from various communities. So in essence, you may have to get on the bus and go home because you got to get home and not necessarily enjoy some activities here at your school. So we're going to look at that. Actually, this summer, the staff and I, we were looking at data and looking at possibilities of not getting rid of it in a sense, but to explore how do we continue with the ESOL program, but at individual students' homeschool. So you wouldn't have to travel to get to a center and then come back. So I just want to make sure everyone knows we're not going to get rid of the services of the supports. It's going to be how do we provide that. And so the question is, and I know our principals are asking, okay, when is that? We have to really look at all those facets, how we're programming, the staffing, the transportation, how do we communicate, when did we start? Did we just start everyone? Did we start a phase in? A lot of work around that, but I'm coming from a district where we had centers and we were starting to break them up and to get students back to their home school. Because I'm very passionate about our schools should be, even though it may not have the title of community schools, it should have that feel. You're leaving your home, you're coming here for 6, 7, 8 hours for school, for activities. You want to make this a part of your second family, and so that's what we have to explore. So we're looking at the model, but we're going to make sure we still give the support. So we're not getting rid of the supports or the services, just looking at how we're going to do it differently. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Al Hassan, and I'm a junior at Western Tech. So my question is that in many middle schools and high schools, Spanish is the only or the majority world language taught, despite an increasing demand for speakers of languages like French, Arabic, or Mandarin. So I was wondering if there are any plans on implementing more foreign language choices or increasing them in our schools.
Great, great. ¿Tú hablas español solamente?
French. French.
So the teacher retention and recruitment is a focus. We don't have enough teachers coming out of our higher ed in the state of Maryland or in our nation. Now when you're talking about teachers of world languages, that pool is getting smaller. That is our struggle. A lot of it is our wonderful Office of Human Resources will go out recruiting, and sometimes we'll have to go outside of the state, outside of our country, to look at how we can get individuals who can speak the language and fluent in the language to come. But that is a dilemma that not only Baltimore County is having, many of our districts are having, particularly with the world languages. Would love to have Chinese, Arabic, French, more love. It's finding the actual teacher. And again, we have to have the certification as well. So even though I think I can speak the language of Spanish, probably couldn't teach it. You know what I mean? So I might be semi-fluent in Spanish. Omar's going to tease me a little bit. But to be able to teach it, and that certification is the second component. I would love to have more of that. Sign language, can anybody sign? Yeah. Love to have that as well. Just got to find the people. That's the work. I appreciate that question, though. Appreciate that. I need some music.
Appreciate you. All right. How you doing today? My name's Tymeek. I go to Woodlawn. My question is regards to the buses. We got many buses that's lack of buses or overcrowded buses. What do you plan to do about that?
So that has been an ongoing issue for Baltimore County. We have a phenomenal director, a new director that was hired in July. We are studying that. How do we hire more bus drivers? That's a little bit of a shortage. And that's the work almost equal to the number of staff that we have to hire for classrooms. Never want a bus to be overcrowded. Never want kids to be sitting in an aisle. Never want incidents to happen because it's a safety issue, and I'm concerned about that. We're going to have we have a plan of action to start exploring ways to address how do we compensate, how do we get more bus drivers, and then how do we keep our buses safe? Because I was fortunate to go with our staff to our bus lots and to visit and talk to some of our bus drivers and some of our attendants. They're concerned too about safety, to make sure they have the right number of kids on the bus, and to make sure our students are doing what they need to do part of the bus. I used to say as a principal, that bus is really an extension of my school building. You don't want me to be riding a school bus with you home. And I had to do it one time. I actually got on the school bus. It was the quietest ride I've ever had, but it's all about safety. So to your point, we are working hard to address that with looking at ways we can hire, ways we can pay, but also supporting the needs to make sure the buses are safe and having those conversations with our bus drivers and our administration, because the bus is an extension, as I see it, of the schoolhouse. And sometimes our students don't remember that. And there are cameras on the bus.
So to add on to that, so as your student representative, I'm supposed to communicate to you what's going on. So actually next week, I'm actually visiting the transportation system and their lots. And hopefully we're gonna make a video about it so you guys can see firsthand what's going on, the amount it takes, the process, what's going on, why the buses are late, why we're having a problem, and so you guys understand what's going on and that something is actually being done and that we're working on it.
And we'll provide an update later this year about our efforts to address these concerns. Each year we want to get better. So this year we have data as to what was happening. And each year it's all about continuous improvement and ways to improve. Okay. Some questions in the front.
morning. My name is Vincent Forte, and I attend CCFAS. So, I have a question for you, and I know you've been a teacher and everything. So, I know you had a student there. Sorry, a student there that has some untapped potential. They've just had their heads down and everything like that. And I can vouch for them. I can definitely tell you that it's because they're not engaged enough or they're not interested in the subject. How do you plan on changing that?
So I've said this, and I'll keep saying, every student should have at least one adult in the building whom they trust. At least one. So it might not be that classroom teacher. It might be building services. It might be a secretary, counselor, coach, paraeducator. Might be a teacher. So it's interesting that you asked me about my experience. So I didn't allow my students to put their head on the desk. So because of that, I had to build relationships. I had to know what was going on. And if my former students are watching this, who are grown, would say I was the toughest thing they'd ever seen in their lives. But years later, they came back and thanked me. Because as tough as they say I was, there was this relationship. And now, years later, I think you all and your friends are dealing with situations that my generation, the kids I taught, didn't have to experience. So some of it is, it may be the course itself. Why is it not engaging? You know, is it all lecture? Are you doing hands-on? Are you working in groups? Are you getting up presenting? So it may be the structure itself. It also may be just what's going on with the individual student. So our staff members are taxed with so much. They got to teach and prepare the lesson. They got assessments. They got to worry about a lot of things. But I also felt like them, I had to worry about a lot of things. But I also had to understand I wasn't just teaching the subject. I was teaching students the subject. So therefore, I had to be keen when I think I'm losing someone to follow up. I remember, I won't say his name, but I remember this junior that I was teaching one year. He was in my Algebra 1 class. And he struggled, and he did what you just said. And I couldn't let that go, because he's a junior taking Algebra 1. And he had aspirations of taking his dad's business and working that when he finished school. And I wanted to learn a little bit more about him. I met with his counselor. Then I learned that there were gaps, skill gaps. So every day after class, he and I sat for 15 minutes and ended up learning more about him, where I can now say he had aspiration, taking the business from his dad, et cetera, et cetera. That built that relationship. Started to watch his behavior change in class. Not only was I building the gaps in terms of the math skills, I had that relationship. So it's hard now being a teacher. I will say that till I'm blue in the face. It is hard. But I also believe, from my own experience, as a student and as an educator, we gotta have at least one adult in that building for students so they can talk to. So the head on the desk may be an indication of several things. How do we explore that so we don't have more of that going on? So thank you for that.
Wow, I'm sorry. My name is Alima Edenego. I'm from Manderstown. So my question is about the magnet. While I was applying for the magnet program, there was this thing called the lottery. I don't know anything about it much, but so when the people that got in, like when the list of them came out, some people that went to my school, my middle school, they got into a magnet, and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You understand? Like, your grades are like, they're not good. Your skills are like not good. While the students that didn't get into it, their grades is like perfection. They're doing everything. So, and then like now, those students that didn't get in, they have to like go outside school and figure it out all on their own. Like the magnet program, like they have to learn how to do CPR or do all this by themselves. So my question is, do you guys plan on getting rid of the lottery and like making it fair for everyone?
So unfortunately, I've had this experience in my previous life with magnets, and it went to a lottery, which there was work around that. Coming here and hearing those comments, I wonder if the question is around number of seats. And so one way of looking at this is, how do we open up more seats for students? So I can't really speak about those individuals who have no good scores, no, how did they get in? But we can look at the process itself. But in terms of, it goes back to my earlier comment about access and opportunity. So how do we open up more seats for students to give them that opportunity to get in? But I also just want to put in a plug, and magnets are fine, and as I said, I was a principal that had 2 magnet programs in their school. I also have this vested interest, which is going back to an earlier question, that I want all of our schools to be just as good as a magnet school. So yes, you may have this interest, you're a good creative writer, or you're a good dancer, a good singer, but I want all of our schools to have the reputation of some of our magnets. Somehow there's this image, the magnet schools are great, and it might be because of what's being offered, but I want all 175 schools to be great. Yes, we're going to have your particular interests, but wouldn't it be a great thing that it's great to go to this, my home community school, and I might be good at dancing, and I'm not, but I'm just saying, wouldn't that be great if I didn't get to that school, I could still have opportunities in my home school. So yes, more seats, got to explore that, but my bigger goal is, how do we make sure 175 schools are great? So they're giving me the signal. Maybe one more question? Here's one right here in the front.
Thank you. I put it in my notes. Okay. Do you have a plan to implement solutions to help children in the school system who struggle with mental health issues?
Oh, yes. So, wow, we have an office, school climate and safety, school safety and climate. I always mess up the name, Dr. Sargent. And a part of that is really looking at that arm of that office around student well-being. We were able to get more counselors and social workers in our schools. That is great. The budget, this current budget, was to get more counselors and social workers. It's the desire to get even more. Looking at that ratio of student to counselor and looking at our social workers and our PPWs, all that on that student services side, absolutely. Every school has a climate goal, and looking at them, sometimes it's discipline, suspension, but then there are times where it's about attendance and drilling down why students are coming to school, why they're coming late. So absolutely, absolutely. You won't be successful if you're not feeling well. And so absolutely, we're going to be rolling that out. We're actually doing work now in terms of our budget. Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Thank you for those hard questions. Thank you for just your voice. Just remember, you have a voice. You have a voice in your schools, in our leadership. Make sure it's heard. Again, sometimes you may not see change overnight, but we're dedicated and committed to making sure we have our system, the best system in the state of Maryland. So remember, we have school up until December 20th. So make sure you're still in school. Stop playing. Be in school. Be on time. Do well. Thank you all.